Hey there! It's time for one of those videos where I irreparably ruin some type of dish trying to recreate it. So I thought this would be interesting. Today we're going to make a very nice dessert, something I really like. Baklava! It's a Gordon Ramsay recipe, and I really enjoy it. So we're going to need a couple of items. First of all, we have some caster sugar. Caster sugar in the Netherlands is a little bit different from caster sugar in, say, the US, but it's a similar product, just a sugar. We also need lemon for now, and we need some pistachios. We need to ground that all together. So here I just have very nice pistachios, fresh from the market. These are peeled already, which is kind of useful, and of course unsalted, because it's a sweet, some would say extremely sweet dessert. Here we have my dear friend Hannibal Lecter left this here. We're going to zest the first lemon. I've washed it, of course, right? Because otherwise it gets all grubby. You don't know what you're peeling exactly. Of course, there are other ways to zest a lemon. You can use a grater or something, but this is actually something that you use to make kind of fancy curly bits of zest. But I've just found it to be the easiest way to do this. Let me see, where was I? There. A bit slippery from the washing, but there we are. That should be about enough. Now I'm going to grind all that together. The nice thing about using the lemon zest, and that's one reason I really like this specific recipe. Just fits. Sugar. Nice tight fit. There we go. Nice thing about this specific recipe is that because of the lemon zest, it's not super sweet. I'm just going to put this away. Let's blitz that together. Sorry about the noise. Grab a bowl. That's a very small bowl. That's a really small bowl. There. Just mix that through. And actually I kind of like it when there's a couple of nuts in there that are still whole, for the texture, you see. Okay, well, the next thing we have to do, clear this a little bit, put it away. We take our phyllo dough, which you buy. You can make that, but that's quite difficult. It's also fairly brittle stuff, so you have to be a little careful. See, parts always break, that's okay. It's a bit dry. You grab a very nice sharp knife. Gift from my dear friend Aaron. And we're going to cut this. As well as we can lengthwise. Alright, knife out of the way. Then, just for convenience sake, put the non-horribly broken bits on a plate. While we are doing this, I have actually preheated, or actually am preheating an oven to 150 degrees Celsius, not Fahrenheit. And now, just taking a baking tray, I've sprayed some of that stuff on it. You can also use molten butter, it doesn't really matter. I have a little brush. This is butter, just molten / melted. I'm going to take a sheet of the phyllo dough. I'm going to take some butter. I'm going to brush it. Now I've found that it's easiest to do this with a spoon. Take your mixture, just put that on there. And you can be fairly generous because it makes quite a bit. So it was 300 grams of pistachio. Of course, that is the peeled pistachio. 100 grams of the sugar. And the zest of 1 lemon. Push that on there. Another layer of butter, and at this point this is going to get fairly repetitive because you just have to stack it. So you keep doing this, so it's fairly simple to make. Another layer of the phyllo. I try to go for the nice bits of dough first, and you have to kind of compress it a little bit to make sure that it will stack neatly. If it slides a little bit, it's not a problem. But that's one of the reasons you keep pressing it down a bit. Another layer. Obviously, when you use butter like this, it's not the type of dish that you have to lose a lot of weight. But it is a dessert. It's very indulgent. Not something you should probably have every day. But that's part of the fun of having a dessert, right? There we go. Sorry. Oh. Huh. Stuff falls to the sides, you can always put it back on. It doesn't really matter. And just a tiny bit more. There we go, that's good enough. I typically try to use up one pack of the phyllo dough, but of course you can keep on stacking. It just affects the cooking time a little bit. Breaking up a few clumps. I'm trying to save a relatively nice sheet to put on top. But I think we're almost there now. For the record, I have also done this with different nuts in the past. You can use pretty much anything you like, of course. Traditional is pistachio, but I've also done it with cashews. That was okay, a little bland maybe. I've also done it with pecan nuts. That works too. I mean, anything, it's just whatever you like. It's just that pistachios have a really nice flavor, and also the green color is very nice. Just visually, it's a very pleasing result. Okay, I think we can patch together a few more of these sheets. Now we're going to go to the final layer. Okay. Clearly notice that this bit's a bit flatter than the middle. That can happen. Then you just have one that's going to be smaller. Because the next thing we'll have to do, that's always a bit tricky, is cut these in such a way that you get bite-sized pieces. There. Just brush that with a bit of butter, or flick some butter in its general direction, I suppose. This is an okay piece. Just gonna put this on. Oh, sorry, I think I kicked the camera. Wasn't personal. As I said, it's kind of nice to have a nice piece on top, but it's going to curl up a little bit in the oven anyway, so it's not a big deal. Brush the final bit with some butter. And then it's time for the hard part. the cutting. You'll see why. It's the issue is that you don't want to destroy the nice stacks that you've built up. So let's try to do this. How wide do you want them? It's up to you. I mean, in principle you can bake it like this. The only reason I don't, and I cut it up, is that we're next going to make a syrup, and the syrup has to kind of pervade the whole thing, so every little crack is nice, because that means the syrup will go into that. So I'm going to be careful. This does actually require a sharp knife, so you can't do this with a blunt knife because you're just going to crack and ruin everything. It's hard enough as it is, like this. Also, of course, you kind of go onto metal with your knife, so it's always a little painful, but just be careful. And once more. Now the syrup that goes on, that is only added after this has been baked in the oven. So we will bake this for 30 to 40 minutes, 150 degree oven, as I said. My oven was preheating for quite a bit, you probably hear it in the background. That's good. I'm going to put it in, and then we're going to do the syrup. So, I'll see you in a second. Okay, well now we're going to work on the syrup. That's going to be poured over the baklava once it's done. We need the juice of 1 lemon. This one is a bit small, so I may actually go for the other lemon. We also need the zest of 1 more lemon. So I have washed and cleaned this lemon. Just because I got it from the market, you know, you never know where they've been. Of course, what I was doing just now was this in the first part, and of course I scraped my finger. I hadn't even noticed, but be careful. So I'm going to go up now, and I'm going to do it in such a way, or down again, it depends on how you look at it, but I'm going to be grating away from myself. Just stupid mistakes. These kinds of things, this happens, and it just shows what happens if you try to be too fast or don't pay attention. You see, now I'm doing this with much more care. I'm not even getting close to actually hurting myself. So in the kitchen you don't rush. The syrup we're going to make, of course you can use all kinds of things. I imagine it's quite good with a bit of honey, but I'm following this Gordon Ramsay recipe, and he uses sugar. So again, we have right there 200 grams. That same sugar I used for the baklava entrails. What is it? Inside of the baklava. Most disgusting way to put it. Sugar, 200 milliliters of water, easy 200 grams, 200 milliliters, and the juice of 1 lemon. But not just the juice, also that zest. Well, we have the zest. I'm going to use this just because it's a slightly bigger lemon, and this one I'll just put in the fridge. It's just been grated, so if I use it up in the next 2 or 3 days or so, it should be fine. I'm going to juice it. I know you can do all kinds of stuff, put in a fork and twist it, but I really want to maximize the amount of juice, so I'm going to use an actual juicer. Rolling it around typically helps a bit to make it nice and juicy. Sharp knife, of course you use a cutting board, don't put it on the kitchen counter. I just washed my board and put it away, so I'm just being very careful here not to touch the counter. There we go. I'm a disaster. Anyway, there's going to be a bit of noise again, sorry. As I said, I really want to maximize the juice. Okay. Quick sift. Of course, you can also separate the actual zest and the lemon juice, which would make sense because then I wouldn't have to fish out the little seeds. I could just sift the whole thing. But that's alright. Also, I can touch this with my fingers. Of course, I wash my hands, but it doesn't matter because this is going to boil. So it really doesn't matter. Ooh, the public health department! Yeah, it doesn't matter because it's going to be boiled. Alright, we have our sugar, we have our water, we have this together, can go in. All we need is a saucepan. So I'm just going to switch camera position, see you in a second. Okay, well this I guess is the only slightly tricky part because you have to make sure that this all works out well. It's not that difficult. Just grabbing an implement. It's not that difficult, it's just something that has to come together well. So, a bit of fire or heat or whatever you have. Not too much. I'm using this pan. You can use anything, a small saucepan, whatever you have. It's just that I like this because it has a fairly thick bottom, so it heats up very evenly, which is nice. Keep it on the fire well. We'll have to wait a bit. It's a very simple mix. You get the sugar in, as I said, 200 grams of sugar. I know you can't see it, but that's that lemon juice with the lemon zest I made, and there's a bit of water. I'm just making sure I have everything on the arms, what do you call that, within reach. It needs to really heat up a bit. Then it's very simple. It's a matter of just stirring it, so it's easy. This is one of those things where it's like, do you stir or not stir? Like risotto, do you stir, not stir? Caramel, do you stir, do you not stir? Do whatever the hell you want. It doesn't really matter. I just like to stir it because I find it heats up very evenly, and it to me it works. All right, that's all. Funny, innit? Watching a pan heat up. Yeah, we're slowly getting there. May even take a little bit more heat. Just to speed up the process a little bit. I can always turn it down. So, does it have to be a stainless steel pan like this? No, you can also use a non-stick pan. It really doesn't matter. The simple thing is the sugar needs to melt, and I find that stirring helps to, well, make it melt. I'm not trying to make caramel. We add quite a bit of water. It has to be a sauce, but it also basically has to syrup, if that was a verb. So it needs to be thick. We don't want thin and watery like this. It has to be a thicker consistency, and that just takes time. So you need to stay with this for a bit and then leave it. Oh, okay, now we're getting somewhere. So I'm just going to turn that down a little bit. Sugar in. Just checking. If you look at the center of the pan, heat it at the hottest bit, right? And you can always see if that starts to melt nicely. As I said, we're not making caramel or something anyway, but just trying to assess the heat. Yeah, we're slowly starting to melt a little bit. Okay, then I'm going to put in the water. That's going to make some noise. Ooh. And that lemon juice and the zest. It's beautiful. I love this. Okay, now gentle stir. I'm just going to hold on to the pot, so I mean it's clearly not just going to magically fall off, but I don't want to accidentally keep pushing it off the heat. So I make sure it's there, and of course it's safer to hold it, right? I love the sugar. I used a lighter caster sugar. There's very dark caster sugar. I love this color because it's blonde in a nutshell. So you get this very nice light brown syrupy color, which I think just visually is very pleasing. Now this is going to take a while, so you have to let the sugar melt. I don't know how well you can see this. I can try to zoom in a bit, but there is some sugar at the bottom. You can see it there, right? That needs to melt. So by stirring it, you make sure it doesn't cake to the bottom of the pan. You keep it moving, just slowly. I mean, no erratic, super fast stirring, just some motion. And the idea is, of course, that the water is slowly going to evaporate. That's going to make the sauce, or in this case syrup, thicker. I want to reduce it a little bit. It already smells delicious. The smell of the baklava in the oven, that's actually a really nice smell. And then you have the smell of this. It's a mixture of sugar and lemon, and that's just a delicious smell. Not overly sweet, nice bit of tang to it, slightly sour. It's really, really nice. You can also see, at least I think you may be able to see, some nice steam developing, which is good. I want the water to get out a bit. Get out, water. You know, I see there's a bit of a sugar deposit there, so just moving it away. My baklava will be in the oven for 40 minutes. There's 15 minutes left. That's a pretty good timing. I want this to boil, and clearly at the level of heat I've put on, that's going to take a while. And once it boils, I also want it to simmer, so maybe turn down the heat just a little bit. And now the sugar is mostly gone, has been dissolved, so I'm actually going to increase the heat a little bit, just so I get it to boil. As I said, I have touched that lemon juice mixture with my hands, so I do actually want it to boil to make sure that, should there be any bacteria or something, they'll all be assassinated. Okay, I'm going to stop moving for a bit. I just want that to boil. There we go. Start to see bubbles. That's good. As I said, it's not particularly difficult, this. It's just a matter of you have to pay attention, you have to give it some care and love. You cannot just put this on and then read the newspaper. You actually have to make sure it stays in motion at least the first minutes. Okay, that's working. I just want that to simmer, not to boil or burn. I mean, burn has water in it, but you know what I mean. I don't want it to go too fast and get a sort of weird bitter flavour. And what we want with this, I don't want it to be water. I want it to be a syrup. So I like all the steam here. We just need it to evaporate quite a bit more. And what I want to see is something that's not exactly water. It's a little thicker. And that just takes time. It's just a matter of it has to slowly reduce. Liquid needs to evaporate. There's a bit of sugar there on the rim of the pan. Just trying to get it all in. Carefully lift that. I can have a bit more heat. Now, of course, when we're going to move this, we're very, very, very careful because this is a very hot liquid. Especially with the hot sugar in it and all that. However, I'm getting the feeling, I start to feel just a tiny bit of resistance when I stir this. I think it's slowly starting to get a bit thicker, which is how I want it. But I want it thicker than this though. Now you don't want some thick, sugary mess that you can basically cut with a knife. You do want to have something that will still pour, because that's the thing. We have to, once the baklavas are ready, we take them out of the oven. It's a little tricky, but I try to transfer them to a plate because the oven tray I use is not sealed at the bottom, it has a loose bottom. I don't want this to leak out. So I either transfer them or I put it on some bigger thing so that the syrup will not leak out of the bottom. If you just let it go for a second, you see it's actually simmering. There's tiny bubbles rising to the surface, so that's good. Yeah, it's getting nice. Alright. Yes, we're getting there. This just needs to go for a bit longer, so I'm just going to turn off the camera. I'm going to leave it just like this, and I'll turn off the heat because it just needs to sit for a bit, and that's it. And then once I reactivate the camera, the baklava is done. This has cooled down a bit because it's definitely gotten to a point where I kind of like it. It's still a bit thin, but I don't want it too thick. But it's interesting because you feel, when you stir through this, it doesn't really feel like water anymore. It feels like a thicker mixture. As I said, it's a pan with a pretty thick bottom, so even if I turn off the heat, it's going to keep being heated up for a bit longer, and I think then it's going to be perfect. So, turn off the heat, turn off the camera, see you in a minute. That's the oven. I'm going to take out the baklava. Putting it on a plate, because as I said, this is a loose bottom baking tray sheet thing, which means that the syrup I'm going to pour over it is going to seep through. And this way, on a plate, I can just easily clean that. I have a little sauce spoon here. Of course, you can just take the pan and just tilt it, but that way I find it very hard to control, and given how little motor coordination I have, it's probably best if I do it this way. I'm just going to take some of that syrup. It's been cooled down a little bit now. I'm just going to pour it over there. Now, one thing that's very important is that you want this stuff to just cool, and you want it to pervade the entire baklava, and that's it. So there you go. Gordon Ramsay recommends to let this cool down for about 12 hours. No way in hell that happens, because this is way too good to not have. So can't use too much syrup. Put a little bit more on there. Again, make sure it pervades every little crack, because that's the delicious stuff. And that's all there's to it. So let it cool down a bit, because this is super hot. Make sure you don't burn yourself on the tray. That's all there's to it. Hope this was useful. Make it, enjoy it, and I'll gladly see you later. Bye bye.